When Patricia forced my daughter to eat dirty food as punishment for being disabled, she never thought that a mother's fury would uncover years of discrimination and unite the whole community to stop her cruelty. Before we go into the complete story, leave a comment saying where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more jaw-dropping Karen stories. You need to control that child. Patricia Harrington's high-pitched voice sliced through the calm of our neighborhood park like shattered glass. She loomed over my daughter Mia, who sat quietly in her wheelchair, her hands shaking as she tried to scoop up the pieces of her fallen ice cream cone. "I'm sorry," Mia whispered, her voice trembling, eyes filled with tears. At just 7 years old and with muscular dystrophy, my daughter already had more than enough on her plate in life. The last thing she deserved was to be yelled at by the president of our homeowners association. "Just look at this mess," Patricia exclaimed, gesturing toward the tiny splash of vanilla ice cream on the sidewalk. This is precisely the reason why I objected to eliminating accessibility restrictions from our neighborhood policies. Now we have situations like this, unattended children misbehaving. I ran from the water fountain, where I had just filled Mia's bottle, seething with fury with each step. "My daughter is not unattended," I said, trying my best to remain calm, though inside I was fuming. "I was 20 feet away. She dropped her ice cream. It's something that happens to kids." Patricia's lips pursed behind her oversized sunglasses. She inclined her head, her perfect blonde bob locked into position. "Not in Meadowbrook Estates," she said. "We have standards." This was already our third encounter with Patricia since relocating to the neighborhood a month prior. First, she complained about the wheelchair ramp being an eyesore. Then we received a violation notice regarding our adaptive van being parked in the driveway rather than the garage. Now this, shaming my daughter in public for spilled ice cream. Other moms in the park had turned around to see. Their faces expressed discomfort, perhaps curiosity, but nobody intervened. "It's okay, baby," I said to Mia, kneeling next to her and wiping away her tears. "Everybody makes mistakes." "Not accidents, negligence," Patricia snapped. Her manicured fingers tapped out a rhythm on her clipboard. "As HOA president, it's my duty to enforce community regulations. This walkway was just power washed yesterday and at considerable expense to our residents." Mia's small hand closed around mine, her grip fragile, but firm enough to remind me of what truly mattered. It had only been the two of us since Laura died of cancer 2 years ago. We'd spent the remainder of her life insurance bringing us here, for the schools, the quiet community, the so-called family-friendly atmosphere. "I'll clean it," I said softly, extracting napkins from my pocket. "See that you do," Patricia said icily, "and take this as your verbal warning. Next time, you can expect a fine." Her heels clicked hard as she departed. I overheard her muttering under her breath, "This is what we get when we begin breaking the rules for every sob story." Mia's face wrinkled at the words. "I'm sorry I'm making a problem, Daddy," she breathed. "You are never a problem," I replied firmly, my heart hurting as I looked at how small and vulnerable she was in that instant. "Never. Some folks just forget how to be human." The event could have been just one more bad memory to add to a long list, if it hadn't been for what happened 3 days later during the community picnic. The community picnic was held every summer in Meadowbrook as an old custom, one which had been present even before a majority of its current residents inhabited the area. The shiny welcome brochure had touted it as the gem of community life, a party designed to foster greater community connections and flaunt the upscale amenities behind the high HOA fees. We had almost missed it. Following the ice cream showdown, Mia was reluctant to be around others in our community, but her physical therapist had urged more social contact, and I was not about to let a cold-hearted woman chase us away from possible new friends. "We'll just stick around for an hour," I reassured Mia, gently pulling her from the car into her wheelchair. "If you're having a bad time, we'll leave immediately." The lawn in front of the community center had been wonderfully decorated. Glittering lights above, party tables neatly arranged, and a long buffet along the patio. Kids giggled and played in the background while adults drank wine and exchanged plates they'd brought to the potluck. "Dad, look, they have an accessible table." Mia nodded eagerly at a table set at the ideal height for her wheelchair. My spirits perked up for the first time in days. Perhaps not everyone in the community held Patricia's strict opinions. We headed toward the buffet, where I assisted Mia in selecting soft foods that she could manage easily. Some pasta, cut fruit, and a bit of chocolate cake that made her eyes light up with happiness. Before we were seated at the wheelchair-accessible table, Patricia emerged beside us, microphone in hand. She sported a well-fitted blue sundress that complemented the HOA logo seamlessly and a large name tag that declared President Harrington. "Welcome all to our 27th annual Meadowbrook Summer Picnic," she declared. Her words rang out across the lawn, muffling tiny conversations as everyone focused their attention on her. Before we get into the good stuff, I have some brief reminders and community announcements. This was followed by a 15-minute speech that appeared suspiciously designed to meet each and every accommodation we had made since we arrived, without actually naming us. All home modifications and ramps need prior approval through the proper HOA channels. Special devices in vehicles are not exempt from normal parking regulations. And parents need to make sure their children don't make noise or leave messes in common areas. I noticed several neighbors glance uncomfortably toward us during these passive-aggressive announcements. Mia slumped lower in her chair, the excitement she'd felt earlier fading fast. Once Patricia finally passed the mic, a woman with curly red hair walked up to our table with a warm, welcoming smile. "Don't let Patricia get to you," she said kindly. "Most of us aren't like that. I'm Diana Carson. We live 3 houses down." "James Reed," I replied, grateful to her. "And this is Mia." Diana pulled up a chair and sat with us. Diana led Mia into a discussion of her favorite books with gentle ease. In a matter of minutes, her daughter Lily joined, inviting Mia to witness the Firefly release planned for Sunset. For the first time since our arrival in Meadowbrook, I felt a spark of optimism, a genuine possibility that we might truly belong. "Mr. Reed," Diana said softly as the girls kept talking, "some of us on the neighborhood committee, we've had issues with Patricia's leadership. If you've had something bothering you, I'd be happy to hear it." I hesitated, caught between the danger of speaking out and the chance of actual change. Before I could respond, I saw Mia's plate was bare. "Let me get you some more cake, sweetie," I said. "I can monitor her," Diana replied kindly. I walked over to the dessert table, which was now full of neighbors serving themselves seconds. While I waited, I listened in on Patricia's unmistakable voice behind me. "Absolutely inappropriate for this neighborhood," she was telling another board member. "If we continue to make these types of accommodations, property values will plummet. What's next? Group homes? Halfway houses?" "That seems a bit extreme, Patricia," the man replied, clearly uncomfortable. "We're just talking about reasonable accommodations for a disabled child." "Disabled is just code for special treatment," she snapped. "My kids never needed ramps or special tables or exceptions to the rules." I clenched the plate tightly, rage surging in my chest. But I turned away, forcing myself to focus on Mia, and not her. When I returned to the table, Diana was gone. Patricia stood now beside Mia. Another plate rested in front of my daughter, one I hadn't put there. "What's going on?" I asked, putting down the cake. Patricia smiled at me with a smile so sharp it could cut glass. "Just making sure community standards are maintained, Mr. Reed. Diana was summoned away by the entertainment committee, and I saw your daughter making quite a mess. So I offered a more appropriate meal." She pointed to the plate. There on the plate in front of Mia was a heap of muck, real food waste, clearly dirty, combined with leftover morsels from the other plates. It looked as if cigarette ash had been scattered across the top. Mia remained still, streaming tears down her face. "Told her kids with special needs need to be thankful for anything," Patricia went on loudly, making sure others nearby could hear. "And in this community, we don't squander resources on people who don't value them." The world constricted to a keen fire point of anger. I could say nothing before Diana came back. She halted short, her gaze fixed on the plate in front of Mia. "What is this?" she asked, her voice harsh. "A lesson in thankfulness," Patricia replied coolly. "She spilled her meal, so I gave her something better suited to her abilities." Diana's face paled, then blazed a hot red. With no hesitation at all, she held the vile plate aloft and shouted, her voice cutting through the picnic conversation. "Everyone, May I have your attention, please? Talk ceased. Heads turned. I wished I could have vanished, but couldn't. This, Diana announced, her anger shaking her voice, is the plate our HOA president provided for a disabled 7-year-old. She rummaged through the trash and handed this child what she could find. She said that this is what someone like she is worthy of. Gasps ran through the crowd. Murmurs spread across the lawn. Parents held on to their children. Disgust and anger etched themselves on almost every face. That's not what occurred. Patricia started, her tone defensive. Patricia attempted to protest, but her voice lacked its characteristic bite. I was simply instructing proper behavior. I overheard every word, said an older man at the adjacent table. His face was one of extreme distaste. Disgraceful. Just absolutely disgraceful. Is this true, Patricia? A tall man in a polo shirt stepped forward. His name tag was Robert Chen, HOA Vice President. Did you in fact serve spoiled food to this child? Patricia's cool finally broke for the first time. It was a learning experience, she snapped. About frivolousness. This family, they've been nothing but a headache since they got here. Always requesting special favors, modifications, exceptions. The rest of us play by the rules. Someone had to teach them how things are done in Meadowbrook. By coercing a disabled child to eat trash? A silver-haired woman stood forward, quivering with rage. Not anywhere civilized, no way. The crowd agreed. The response from the community was swift and concerted. Robert ordered an emergency board meeting then and there. Neighbors I'd never even talked to stepped up. They talked about Patricia's bullying, about her discrimination, about her uneven enforcement of HOA rules. All the time I had Mia snug tight against my side, guarding her from becoming the focus of the commotion. Diana remained with us. Her daughter Lily, in one pure and simple gesture of charity, gave Mia her untouched piece of cake. Tears pricked at my eyes once more. This time, not of pain, but thankfulness. I'm so sorry, Diana whispered. We've all let this continue for too long. We were afraid we'd be next. The emergency meeting ended with Patricia's immediate suspension from the HOA board, to be followed by a formal review. She stomped away from the picnic site in an enraged huff, tossing warnings of lawsuits and crumpled property values over her shoulder like trash on a windstorm. After dinner that night, Robert visited our table. Mr. Reed, he extended a hand, speaking as the HOA of Meadowbrook, I must apologize myself. What we had today was unconscionable and really not representative at all of the kind of people we are in this community. Within a week thereafter, something truly wonderful occurred. Neighbors who had previously looked the other way welcomed us with open arms. Playdates were extended. Dinner invitations were sent. Volunteers even assisted with Mia's accessibility requirements in our residence. The HOA board expedited approval for each change we had previously fought to obtain. But greatest of all was the transformation in Mia. The fear that had shrouded her every encounter since we returned gradually disappeared. For the first time in her life, she felt genuinely accepted. 2 weeks later, a moving truck stopped in front of Patricia's house. The news spread fast. Multiple complaints of discrimination had been lodged. Numerous residents provided affidavits regarding her history of hostility toward disabled families, minorities, and the elderly. During the last HOA board hearing, I was invited by Robert. The truth finally emerged. Financial audits uncovered an astonishing pattern. Patricia had issued fines to vulnerable citizens, while her friends were given waivers and exceptions that others never saw. The board voted unanimously to eliminate her permanently. To my surprise, her replacement as HOA president was none other than Diana Carson. At her first official meeting, she stood in quiet strength and said, "Measure of any community isn't how it treats its most powerful, it's how it treats its most vulnerable. Today, we start the work of making Meadowbrook a place where everyone feels they belong." And just like that, the place that had seemed so impossible began to feel like home. How it treats its most vulnerable members. For too long, we failed that test. Never again. 6 months later, Meadowbrook Estates organized its first Accessibility Awareness Fair. Mia, by now radiating confidence, was at the forefront of it all. She assisted in organizing hands-on activities meant to inform other children about various disabilities. how it feels to move around the world in a wheelchair or communicate without language. Her radiant smile leading her new friends through obstacle courses and games of empathy made all the hurtful moments we'd suffered worthwhile. The girl who had once held on so tightly to the shadows was now a beacon others could come around. Later that night, as I was tucking her in, Mia spoke up with a question that froze me in my tracks. Daddy, do you ever think Miss Patricia knew why she was wrong? I hesitated, considering for a moment before responding. I don't know, sweetheart, I whispered softly. Sometimes people become so caught up in rules and appearances that they lose sight of what truly is important. Kindness. Mia nodded her head, forehead creased that way she did since she was a little kid. I'm glad we stayed, she said. If we had moved, maybe things might not have improved, and the next kid who was like me might have gotten treated poorly as well. Her wisdom knocked me off my feet. Confronted by meanness, my 7-year-old daughter had learned a truth that many grown-ups never really understand, that when you stand your ground, not in anger, but in gentle strength, you don't only defend yourself, you leave space for others. That dirty plate of food, designed to isolate and humiliate her, instead ignited something fierce. It was a catalyst for transformation, for accountability, for healing. Not only for Mia, not only for my family, but to an entire community's knowledge of what it really means to belong.